Now, this isn't going to be your typical review at all. Far from it, despite the timing of this upload's release. Yes, this is focusing on what you think, but it's more about the broader idea when it comes to Toy Story. Because as the title says, I've generally accepted Toy Story 5 as a film that exists. Not that I agreed with it or even wanted it, but because I trust who helms these projects. The bigger issue is, of course, with doing something like this, is, well, keep doing it. You've done so much, where how much is there really left to talk about? And technically, via some criticisms, you can definitely see that with this film. It's generally not the strongest Toy Story release by far, and it still relies on the magic of the originals, especially more than any other. However, once again, because of the talents of those like Andrew Stanton, who's been writing since the original Toy Story and has a good sense of emotion in his work with Finding Nemo and WALL-E, Toy Story 5 still lands to be impactful yet again. That's what these films do best, and regardless of how we feel about the more recent ones, that's something we can all agree. And as I've recently said when I looked back on 4, I can truly realize that the essence of Toy Story is the fact that it can make you emotional, and will attempt to make you emotional. Because that's where it all began, how a kid develops with his love of playing with toys and the circumstances that grow into that. This one brings in the angle of technology in a way that feels timely, centered around a character like Lilypad, without bringing it into a simple tech bad lecture. It's more about connection, relevance, and what playtime means now. And the main factor of choice in Toy Story 5 was obviously making Jessie the main character, the focal point amidst the trio, since Woody's decision to make her sheriff after he left with Bo Peep was very important. It gives her the spotlight that she's deserved, drawing deeply from her backstory and that well of abandonment and loyalty, but how that's made her one of the most relatable toys, and the reason why Toy Story can still continue on. But before diving in, let's talk about the real concerns lots of us had about Toy Story 5. Because after 4 wrapped up and our own criticism of that, many fans, including myself, wondered, do we really need another one? This franchise has already given us so many perfect emotional payoffs, so many great endings like the finale of 3 and the finale of 4, so why risk diluting that with more sequels? How we've already talked about so many times the chatter about franchise fatigue, especially in recent years, worrying that it might feel forced or overly reliant on nostalgia, and questions whether Pixar could find a fresh story that can justify itself to bring everyone back, other than money. And yeah, marketing leaned hard into the toys versus tech angle with Lilypad entering Bonnie's world, where skepticism was fair. Would doing all of these things work for legacy characters or alienate longtime fans? But after seeing something like that, here's a more balanced take. Toy Story 5 isn't flawless, no film really is, and it doesn't top the absolute peaks of the first 3 for everyone. Some critics even do note that it can feel a bit uneven early on as it juggles with the storylines, and does lean on a bit of familiar Toy Story beats more than it reinvents the wheel at all. And the tech conflict isn't just a simplistic villain takedown. It's more thoughtful than that, but a few reviews point out that it doesn't always reach the emotional heights of the classics or fully sticks the landing on every thread, and that's to be expected with such a film. But here's why it's actually good and worth accepting. It earns its place by leaning into what Toy Story has always done best: heartfelt exploration of change, loyalty, and what it means to matter as kids and as we grow. Jessie as the emotional core and focal point brings real depth, where the film smartly uses technology angle not to bash screens, but to ask bigger questions about connection, imagination, and playtime in the digital age, and balancing old and new ways of bonding. Again, speaking of screens, this is helmed by Andrew Stanton, who made something like WALL-E, where half the people on the Axiom are on screens. And critics have been largely positive, calling it nimble, moving, funny, and a strong return to Pixar form, often ranking it among the better sequels for its warmth and relevance. However, for now, I would still rank it a bit below something like Inside Out 2, if that's how you value my opinion. But in short, these concerns were valid, but Toy Story 5 addresses them with heart, humor, and respect for its legacy. It reminds you why these stories still have something worth telling, especially through the lens of other characters' eyes. It's solid, emotionally resonant addition that grows with its audience rather than cashes in as it was expected. One of the smartest moves that Toy Story 5 makes, and the big reason of why it feels worthwhile, is how it handles the core trio. How Jessie enters the spotlight as the lead, and how it just works. After Woody passed the sheriff badge to her at the end of 4, it made perfect sense for her to carry the emotional weight here. The last time we seen this was in Toy Story 2 as her backstory was shaped, and her backstory has always been one of the richest in the franchise in the film. And this film gives her time to shine with that mix of high energy optimism, vulnerability, and fierce loyalty. One of the great things about her character is her anxiety of feeling abandoned. She felt that in 2 and in 3 and even in 4, where this time she's driving the story, grappling grappling with fears of being replaced while fighting for Bonnie in a changing world. And this can be praised as something long overdue and deeply effective. And Woody and Buzz aren't sidelined in this film, they're still essential, but their roles evolve supportively. Woody returns from his life with Bo Peep to help the gang, bringing that classic leadership and resourcefulness, with some fun, self-aware aging bits that help into the humor. He's the elder statesman offering wisdom, and that is something that's acceptable to me since 4 was really his story about moving on, and now he can work as a figure just to help. Buzz stays the loyal heroic space ranger we love, with more personal moments including that long simmering dynamic with Jesse and more comedy as we know him as. He provides the comic relief, action, and heart without stealing focus. He's always been the balance in the trio's interplay with a mix of Jesse and Woody on both sides and entering the world through his naive understanding. Of course, that being said, not every choice lands perfectly for longtime fans. Some critics can feel that Woody and other characters can feel a touch underutilized beyond support and jokes. It's a fair point, but this isn't a pure Woody Buzz adventure like the early days. They have already done their stories and how this is more of a strength to their characters by centering Jesse. And by doing that, the film avoids retreading old ground and gives the franchise new emotional immediacy. It honors the past while expanding with these characters and what they can do. And Jesse elevates the whole entire thing, where at the end, the trio dynamic reinforces why Toy Story endures. It's about the toys and people adapting, supporting each other, and finding purpose amidst change. And no Toy Story can feel complete without the newer faces and challenges to the gang. And Toy Story 5 actually delivers that with Lily Pad and others who fit right into the franchise tradition of memorable antagonists who aren't always pure evil. Again, as we like to say, Toy Story doesn't really have villains, they have antagonists. They expand the world and force the toys and us to confront bigger ideas about purpose, connection, and change. Core Toy Story beliefs that have been there since the first film, and very important in the age of technology, since this film started out as the very first 3D film ever released. And Lily Pad is that standout antagonist of being that sleek frog-themed tablet designed to help kids like Bonnie connect and play in modern ways. From the toys' perspective, just like the way we see in Lotso and Stinky Pete, she's the disruptive force, but the film smartly avoids making her a mustache-twirling villain as we've already come to know, because the only times Toy Story did that was, of course, in one with Sid Phillips' attitude and some of Lotso's actions. Because she's well-meaning in her own digital way, representing the next phase of how kids engage with the world. It pushes the film into new timely territory without any preachiness, exploring how technology can connect and isolate while championing imagination and real bonds. And the other new characters add a lot of variety and humor. They aren't perfect additions, but they are serving the story well by showing different sides of play in a changing era. They echo how earlier films introduce the other characters, imperfect but enriching the dynamics, which is why it works in line with Toy Story's beliefs. These new elements reinforce the series' heart, loyalty, and adaptation, and the irreplaceable value of imaginative play. They help the film justify existing by updating the formula thoughtfully, but alas, still staying at that baseline core. So yeah, even after all that, I still sometimes think Toy Story 5 wasn't really needed. The series could have stopped at 3 at the most, or even 4 now, with those perfect emotional send-offs, and nobody really would have complained. There is a valid argument that we could have seen these characters grow, adapt, and say goodbye in beautiful ways already, but still, why keep going when the risk of diminishing returns is so very real? And even 5 still proves that. But pragmatically, on the other hand, I've come to fully accept this. As we've seen in the past few films, Pixar has this track record of managing to make it work, even when it feels so unnecessary on paper. Toy Story 5 is never a dull moment. It's a very good, nice, charming adventure that never forgets what Toy Story is fundamentally about: the love between kids and their toys, and the fear of being replaced or left behind, with the power of imagination, loyalty, and finding purpose no matter how much the world changes. Those core beliefs shine through, updated for today without losing the heart that made the originals timeless. And this will eventually be timeless on its own too. It's funny, adventurous, and yes, still hits you with those Pixar moments that sneak up to you and get you in the feels, as that's always the charm of what a Pixar story can tell. Jesse's journey, the gang's dynamics, and the way it balances nostalgia with something fresh all adds up to being another solid entry. Not the absolute best, maybe, but far from the worst. It earns its place by reminding us why we fell in love with these toys in the first place. In the end, To Infinity and Beyond isn't just Buzz's catchphrase now, it's the spirit of the franchise. As long as they keep delivering these stories with charming and true to the soul of Toy Story, I will be happy to be along for the ride. But anyways, besides that, these toys still have a friend in us, and we still have a friend in them. What more could you ask for? I'm all done. Goodbye.